She thought the DM would change everything. And it did. Just not in the way she imagined. Madison Park was 19 years old when she opened Instagram at 2 in the morning and found a message that seemed to answer every question she'd ever had about herself. The notification glowed in the darkness of her dorm room. Her roommate Sarah was asleep 3 feet away, breathing softly. Madison should have been asleep too. She had an exam in 6 hours. But sleep had become difficult lately, and scrolling through her phone felt easier than lying awake with her thoughts. The message was from an account called Seoul Models International. Verified, blue checkmark, 200,000 followers. The profile picture showed a sleek logo in minimalist black and white. Madison's thumb hovered over the notification. She told herself it was probably spam. Agencies didn't just find you, but something made her click. Hi Madison, the message began. My name is Yuna Kim, and I'm a talent recruiter for Seoul Models International. I've been following your content for a few months, and I think you have exactly the look we're searching for. We specialize in representing Korean American models who want to work in the Korean market. Your aesthetic is perfect for what we're building. Would you be interested in discussing an opportunity? Madison read it 3 times. Her heart kicked against her ribs in a way that felt both thrilling and terrifying. She clicked on the agency's profile. The feed was polished and professional. Behind-the-scenes shots of photo shoots, models getting their makeup done, events at trendy Seoul cafes. She recognized one of the faces from a K-beauty campaign she'd seen online. Everything looked legitimate. Everything looked real. She had 12,000 followers on Instagram. Most of them were college students or distant relatives who liked her photos out of obligation. She posted lifestyle content, coffee in aesthetically pleasing mugs, outfits of the day, skincare routines. She wasn't an influencer, not really. She was just a girl who knew her angles and understood lighting. But sometimes, late at night, she let herself imagine something bigger. Madison was Korean American, born in Austin to a Korean mother and a white father who left when she was 7. She grew up watching her mother work double shifts at a dry cleaner to keep them afloat. She grew up feeling split between 2 identities, never quite fitting in either world. At family gatherings in Korea, her relatives spoke too fast and laughed at jokes she didn't understand. At school in Texas, she was the Asian girl, even though she'd never lived anywhere but Austin. Her Instagram had started as a way to explore the Korean side of herself. She learned makeup techniques from K-beauty tutorials. She bought clothes from Korean brands. She taught herself just enough Korean to write captions that made her feel connected to something larger. And slowly, quietly, she built a small audience of people who seemed to see her the way she wanted to be seen. Not split, not confused, just beautiful. The modeling thing had always been a fantasy, something she thought about but never pursued seriously. Her mother wanted her to focus on school, get a degree, find stability. Beauty fades, her mother always said. Education lasts. Madison was a sophomore at UT Austin studying communications. She made decent grades. She had friends. Her life was fine, but fine had started to feel suffocating. She clicked on Yuna Kim's profile. The account showed a young woman, maybe mid-20s, impeccably styled. Her feed was a mix of agency business and personal content. Photos with models, screenshots of contracts signed, aesthetic shots of Seoul's fashion district. Yuna had posted a story 2 hours ago. A mirror selfie with the caption, "Late night at the office, scouting never stops." Madison's fingers moved before her brain caught up. She typed a reply. Hi Yuna, thank you so much for reaching out. I'd definitely be interested in learning more. She hit send and immediately regretted it. What if it was a scam? What if she seemed desperate? But the message was already delivered, already read. The response came 30 seconds later. Amazing. Are you free for a call tomorrow? I'd love to explain what we do and see if it's a good fit. They scheduled a video call for the next evening. Madison couldn't focus on her exam the next day. Her mind kept drifting to the conversation ahead, to the possibility humming beneath her skin. She told her best friend Claire about it over lunch. Claire was skeptical in the way good friends are. Just be careful, she said. Make sure they're legit before you give them anything. That night, Madison sat at her desk with her laptop open. She'd spent the afternoon researching. The agency's website was clean and professional. Their address was listed in Gangnam, Seoul's most expensive neighborhood. She found them on Naver Maps, Korea's version of Google. The location showed a modern office building. She reverse image searched photos from their Instagram. They were original, not stolen from other agencies. Every detail checked out. When Yuna's call came through, Madison's hands were shaking. Yuna appeared on screen in what looked like a stylish office. She was even prettier than her photos, with sharp cheekbones and glossy black hair. Madison, she said warmly. It's so nice to finally meet you. Her English was perfect, her smile genuine. They talked for 40 minutes. Yuna explained that Seoul Models International focused specifically on Korean-American talent. There's a huge demand in Korea right now for models who have that international look but also understand Korean culture, she said. You're exactly what brands are looking for. She outlined how it would work. Madison would come to Seoul for a 2-week trial period. The agency would cover flights and accommodation. She'd do test shoots to build a professional portfolio. If things went well, they'd offer her a contract for ongoing representation. We've placed models with major K-beauty brands, fashion labels, even some K-drama productions, Yuna explained. The market is exploding right now. Madison asked about costs. Yuna assured her everything was covered up front. We invest in our models because we believe in them. You'd only start paying commission once you're booking paid jobs. She asked about safety. Yuna laughed gently. Seoul was one of the safest cities in the world, and you'd be staying in one of our agency apartments with other models. You'd never be alone. By the end of the call, Madison felt certain this was real. Yuna was professional but warm. She didn't pressure or rush. She answered every question thoroughly. Think about it, Yuna said. Talk to your family. I'll send over some information and you can let me know. No pressure either way. After they hung up, Madison sat in the dark of her dorm room. Sarah was at the library. The space felt too small suddenly, like a box she'd outgrown. She thought about her mother's tired face, the way she smelled like chemical detergent from the dry cleaner. She thought about her father, who she hadn't seen in 12 years. She thought about every family gathering where she felt like a tourist in her own heritage. This opportunity felt like an answer to something she'd been asking her whole life. Proof that she belonged somewhere. Proof that the Korean half of her identity wasn't just a performance on Instagram, but something real and valuable. She imagined walking through Seoul not as a visitor, but as someone who worked there, who was chosen to be there. Someone who fit. She knew her mother would never approve. They'd fought about it before, about Madison's obsession with Korea. You're American, her mother always said. Focus on your future here. Her mother had left Korea at 22 and never looked back. She didn't understand why Madison romanticized a country she'd only visited twice. But Madison was 19, legally an adult. She didn't need permission. The semester was halfway done and she was ahead in most of her classes. 2 weeks wouldn't derail everything. And if this worked, if she actually booked campaigns in Korea, she could help her mother. She could pay her back for all those double shifts and sacrifice. Over the next 3 days, Madison exchanged messages with Yuna. She received a formal information packet with agency details, contract terms, and testimonials from other models. She saw photos of the apartment where she'd stay. Clean, modern, safe-looking. Yuna sent flight options. Business class felt too expensive, but economy was reasonable. We want you comfortable, Yuna wrote. This is an investment in your future. Madison made her decision on a Thursday night. She booked the flight for the following Wednesday. Round trip, 2 weeks. She told her mother she was going to visit her aunt in Busan, a lie that came too easily. Her mother was pleased, thought Madison was finally taking her heritage seriously in a practical way. Madison felt sick with guilt, but pushed it down. She told Claire and Sarah the truth. They helped her pack, offered advice about Seoul, made her promise to check in daily. I'm so proud of you, Claire said, hugging her tight at the airport. Go chase your dream. Just stay safe. Madison boarded the plane with a carry-on and a heart full of hope. She took a selfie in her seat, captioned it, Seoul or Bust, with a Korean flag emoji, and posted it to Instagram. The likes started rolling in immediately. Friends congratulating her, strangers saying she was living the dream. She felt seen in a way she'd never felt before. As the plane lifted off, Austin disappeared beneath the clouds. Madison pressed her forehead against the window and let herself imagine the life waiting for her. Photo shoots in Gangnam, her face on Korean beauty products, her mother finally understanding that this was worth something, that she was worth something. She didn't know that the apartment she'd seen in photos was a stock image. She didn't know that Yuna Kim had bought her verified Instagram account from a former influencer for $5,000. She didn't know that the Seoul Models International office didn't exist, that the address on Naver Maps was a coffee shop, that the website would be deleted in 3 days. She didn't know that she was the 4th girl this year to receive that exact message, or that none of the others had come home. The flight attendant offered her a drink. Madison asked for orange juice and smiled. She'd never been happier. She'd never been more certain of anything. 14 hours later, she landed at Incheon International Airport. She cleared customs with her American passport and wheeled her suitcase into the arrivals hall. She looked for Yuna, scanning the crowd of faces holding signs and flowers. But Yuna wasn't there. Instead, a middle-aged Korean man in a dark suit held a placard with her name written in neat English letters. Madison approached him hesitantly. "I'm Madison," she said. He nodded without smiling. "Mr. Choi," he said in heavily accented English. "Yuna, busy. Photo shoot. I take you apartment." It was the first deviation from the plan. Small, explainable, nothing to panic about. Madison told herself this was normal. Yuna was busy. The fashion industry moved fast. She followed Mr. Choi to a black sedan in the parking garage. He loaded her suitcase and opened the door for her. She got in. The door closed with a heavy click that sounded too much like a lock. As they pulled out of the airport and merged onto the highway, Madison texted Claire and her mother. "Landed safe. So excited. Seoul is beautiful already." She added heart emojis and pressed send. Then she watched the city pass outside her window. Bright lights and tall buildings. Everything she'd ever wanted. She didn't know yet that she'd just made the last free choice she'd make for a very long time. The drive took too long. Madison noticed it after the first 30 minutes, when the gleaming towers of Seoul's skyline started thinning out instead of getting closer. She leaned forward in her seat. "Excuse me, are we going to Gangnam?" she asked. Mr. Choi glanced at her in the rearview mirror. His eyes were flat, unreadable. "Apartment, different location," he said. "Gangnam too expensive. You stay quiet neighborhood, better for foreign girls." The explanation made sense on the surface. Seoul was notoriously expensive. Of course, the agency would house models somewhere more affordable. But something in his tone felt off, the way he said foreign girls like it was a category that needed special handling. Madison pulled out her phone and opened Google Maps, trying to track where they were going. The GPS spun uselessly, no signal. They drove for another 20 minutes into a neighborhood that looked nothing like the Seoul she'd seen in photos. No trendy cafes or fashion boutiques, just residential high-rises that all looked identical. Laundry hanging from balconies, convenience stores with flickering signs. The car finally stopped in front of a gray apartment building that could have been anywhere. Mr. Choi got out and retrieved her suitcase. Madison followed him through a dim lobby that smelled like stale cigarette smoke and something chemical she couldn't identify. The elevator was small and cramped. They rode to the 7th floor in silence. He led her down a hallway with fluorescent lights that buzzed overhead. At the end of the hall, he unlocked a door and pushed it open. The apartment was small. One main room with a kitchenette along one wall, a tiny bathroom, and a separate bedroom barely big enough for the single bed inside. It was clean but sparse. Nothing like the photos Yuna had sent. No other models, no welcoming setup, just empty space that felt more like a holding cell than a home. "You stay here," Mr. Choi said. He set her suitcase down and held out his hand. "Passport." Madison blinked. "What?" "Passport. For registration. Korean law. Foreign people must register address with immigration. I return in few days." She hesitated. Every instinct told her this was wrong. You never gave up your passport? That was travel safety 101. But Mr. Choi stood there with his hand out, patient and immovable. And what was she supposed to do? Refuse and create conflict on her first day? She didn't even know where she was. She had no phone service and couldn't speak enough Korean to navigate alone. She pulled her passport from her bag and handed it over. Mr. Choi tucked it into his jacket pocket. "Yuna, come tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. Rest tonight." He left before she could ask anything else. The door clicked shut behind him. Madison stood in the center of the apartment and felt the first real thread of fear pull tight in her chest. She went to the window. Bars on the outside, the kind she'd seen in Korean dramas. Common for ground floor apartments. But she was on the 7th floor. She tried to open the window. It only cracked a few inches before stopping, some kind of safety lock preventing it from opening further. She checked her phone. Still no signal. She found a Wi-Fi network labeled with Korean characters and tried to connect. Password protected. She went to every network available, all locked. Her phone was essentially useless. Madison sat on the edge of the bed and tried to calm the panic rising in her throat. This was fine. This was probably normal. Maybe Korean apartments all had bars and limited windows for safety. Maybe the agency registered all their foreign models' passports. Maybe she was overreacting because she was tired and overwhelmed. She texted Claire and her mother using the last bit of roaming data she had. At the apartment. "Super tired, going to sleep. We'll call tomorrow." She didn't mention the bars or the passport or the neighborhood that felt nothing like what she'd expected. She didn't want to worry them. And maybe, if she didn't say it out loud, it wouldn't be real. She slept badly that night. Every sound in the building jolted her awake. Footsteps in the hallway. Doors slamming. Voices shouting in Korean. When morning finally came, she felt hollowed out and anxious. Yuna arrived at 9:30. She knocked twice and let herself in with a key, which answered Madison's unspoken question about whether she could leave on her own. Yuna looked exactly like her photos. Stylish blazer, perfect makeup, warm smile. "Madison, I'm so sorry about yesterday. We had a scheduling disaster with one of our major shoots. How was your flight?" The familiarity of Yuna's voice, the normalcy of her presence, made Madison's fears from the night before feel dramatic. "It was good," Madison said. "The apartment is different from the photos you sent." Yuna waved a hand dismissively. "I know, I'm sorry. We had to switch locations last minute. One of our other models extended her stay in the original apartment, but this one is quieter, better for focusing on work." She looked around approvingly. "You have everything you need?" Madison wanted to ask about her passport, about the Wi-Fi, about why they were so far from Gangnam, but Yuna's confidence made the questions feel paranoid. "I don't have internet," Madison said instead. "Oh, the Wi-Fi password." Yuna pulled out her phone and typed something, then showed Madison the screen, a string of Korean characters. Madison connected and felt a small relief as her phone finally synced. Messages from Claire and her mother loaded. "See? All fixed. Now, let's get breakfast and talk about your schedule." They went to a small restaurant 3 blocks away. Yuna ordered for both of them in rapid Korean. Over kimchi jjigae and rice, she outlined the plan. "We'll spend today doing paperwork and getting you oriented. Tomorrow, we have your first test shoot. Nothing major, just building your portfolio so we can start showing you to clients." She pulled out a tablet and showed Madison a calendar. The next 2 weeks were blocked out with shoots, meetings, and fittings. It looked professional and busy. Exactly what Madison had hoped for. "This is amazing," Madison said, feeling her anxiety start to ease. Yuna smiled. "I told you, we've been waiting for someone like you." She slid a document across the table. "This is just the standard agency agreement. It formalizes the trial period terms. Read it over and sign at the bottom." The contract was in English, but the language was dense and legal. Madison skimmed it. Something about expenses and obligations and timelines. Yuna watched her patiently. "It's pretty standard," Yuna said. "Basically just says you're committing to the 2-week trial and we're committing to covering your costs during that time. If either of us wants to end the arrangement early, there's a notice period, normal stuff." Madison wanted to read it more carefully, but Yuna was waiting and she felt stupid asking for time like she didn't trust her. She signed her name at the bottom. Yuna countersigned and took the document back. "Perfect. You're officially part of the Seoul Models family." The first test shoot was scheduled for the next day. Yuna picked Madison up at 8 in the morning. They drove for 40 minutes to an industrial area on the outskirts of Seoul. The studio was in a converted warehouse, all concrete floors and exposed pipes. Not glamorous, but Madison told herself this was how real fashion worked. Raw spaces, creative vision. The photographer was a man in his late 40s named Mr. Song. He barely acknowledged Madison when she arrived, just gestured for her to go to the makeup area. A young woman applied her makeup in silence, heavy and dramatic. The outfits hanging on a rack nearby made Madison's stomach drop. Lingerie, sheer fabrics, nothing like the editorial fashion she'd imagined. Yuna appeared at her shoulder. "I know it's more revealing than you're used to, but this is for a luxury intimate wear brand. Really high-end stuff. It'll look elegant in the photos, I promise." Madison changed behind a screen, her hands shaking slightly as she pulled on a black lace bodysuit. When she stepped out, Mr. Doff, Song gestured her toward a platform covered in white fabric. He positioned her lying down, one arm above her head. "Relax," he said in English. "Look at camera. Soft eyes." The shoot lasted 3 hours. Mr. Song directed her into increasingly vulnerable poses, on her knees, arching her back, hand on her throat. Madison felt exposed in a way that had nothing to do with the lingerie. Every click of the camera felt like pieces of her being taken. When it finally ended, she asked to see the photos. Mr. Song shook his head. "Need editing first. Agency send you later." Madison changed back into her clothes and found Yuna waiting by the door. "You did great," Yuna said. "Very natural on camera." Mr. Song was impressed. On the drive back, Madison tried to shake the uncomfortable feeling clinging to her skin. "When will I see the photos?" she asked. "Usually takes a few days for editing," Yuna said. "We'll add them to your portfolio once they're ready." That night, Madison tried to call Claire. The Wi-Fi was working, but the signal kept dropping. She managed to send a few texts. "Had my first shoot today. Pretty intense, but I think it went well." She didn't mention what she'd worn or how wrong it had felt. She didn't want Claire to worry, and maybe this was just how the Korean market worked. More sensual, more mature. She was being professional. She was making it work. Over the next week, the pattern repeated. Shoots in strange locations. Outfits that got progressively more revealing. Yuna was always there, always encouraging, always explaining that this was normal. Madison never saw the photos. She never met any other models from the agency. She was always driven to and from the apartment by Mr. Choi, never allowed to explore Seoul on her own. "I don't have a Korean phone number," Madison told Yuna one day. "How do I get around when I have free time?" Yuna looked at her strangely. "Free time? Madison, you're here to work. We have a packed schedule. Besides, Seoul is huge and confusing if you don't speak Korean. It's safer if Mr. Choi drives you." The apartment started to feel smaller. Madison realized she hadn't been outside except for shoots in 5 days. She tried the front door one morning, locked. A deadbolt on the outside that required a key. She was locked in. She called for Yuna on the Wi-Fi, her voice shaking. "Why is my door locked from the outside?" Yuna's face on the screen remained calm. "It's for security, Madison. You're a foreign woman alone in Korea. We're protecting you." "Protecting me from what? I feel like I'm trapped." "You're being dramatic. Look, I know adjustment is hard. Give it a few more days. Once you start booking real jobs and seeing paychecks, you'll understand why we're so careful with our model's safety." But Madison was starting to understand something else entirely. The pieces were adding up in ways that made her blood run cold. No other models, no real agency presence. Shoots that felt less like fashion and more like something darker. Her passport taken, her movement controlled, her door locked. The second shoot was worse. 2 photographers this time, and a man in the corner who didn't introduce himself, just watched. The outfits were barely clothing at all. Madison refused at first, standing in the makeshift changing area with her arms crossed. Yuna came in, her expression harder than Madison had ever seen. "Madison, you need to fulfill your contract obligations. You signed an agreement. The agency has invested thousands of dollars in your flights, your accommodation, these shoots. If you don't complete the trial period, you're responsible for reimbursing those costs." "I don't have thousands of dollars." "Exactly. So you need to finish what you started." Yuna's voice softened slightly. "Look, I know this feels uncomfortable, but this is high fashion. This is art. You're creating something beautiful. Don't let your American modesty hold you back from the opportunity you came here for." Madison did the shoot. She had no choice. She had no money, no passport, no way home. Afterward, she locked herself in the bathroom of the apartment and cried until her throat was raw. Back in Austin, Claire's worry had turned to alarm. Madison's messages were getting shorter and vaguer. She wouldn't video call anymore, only texts. The tone felt off, forced. Claire tried calling the agency number from their website, disconnected. She searched for Seoul Models International online. The website was gone. Claire contacted Madison's mother. The truth came out about the lie, about where Madison really was. They filed a missing person report with the Austin police, but Madison was an adult in a foreign country voluntarily. There was little the police could do without evidence of a crime. Claire started calling the U.S. Embassy in Seoul, anti-trafficking hotlines, anyone who might help. But bureaucracy moved slowly, and Madison was running out of time. 2 weeks had passed since Madison arrived. Yuna came to the apartment one evening with takeout and wine. She sat across from Madison at the small table. "We need to talk about your future," she said. Madison's stomach twisted. "I want to go home," Yuna sighed. "That's not really an option right now. You see, the trial period didn't go quite as we hoped. Your look isn't booking the mainstream campaigns we thought it would. The market here is very specific. But I have another opportunity for you." "What kind of opportunity?" "Private modeling. Events, parties, wealthy clients who want beautiful foreign women at their gatherings." "It's not prostitution," Yuna added quickly, seeing Madison's face. "Just companionship. Being charming, making them look good. The pay is significant. You could make in one night what most models make in a month." "No." The word came out stronger than Madison felt. "I'm not doing that. I want my passport back. I want to go home." Yuna's expression went cold. "You owe the agency $15,000, Madison. Flights, apartment, all the shoots we've invested in. You signed a contract. You're not leaving until that debt is paid, and the only way to pay it is to work." The room tilted. Madison understood then with perfect clarity what had happened to her. She wasn't a model. She was merchandise. The contract she'd signed without reading carefully was designed to trap her in artificial debt. The shoots weren't building a portfolio. They were creating material to sell her with. Everything from the DM to this moment had been calculated. "This is trafficking," Madison whispered. Una stood up. "This is business. You came here willingly. You signed documents. No one forced you. And now you have obligations." She walked to the door and paused. "Think about it tonight. Tomorrow we have your first private event, a party in Gangnam, very exclusive. The client is willing to pay $3,000 just to have you there for a few hours. That's a significant chunk of your debt. Be smart, Madison." The door closed. Madison heard the deadbolt slide into place from the outside. She ran to the door and pulled on the handle. Locked. She screamed. She pounded her fists against the wood until her hands hurt. No one came. No one heard. She was alone in a locked apartment in a country where she couldn't speak the language, owned by people who saw her as a commodity to be sold. Her phone was useless without them. Her passport was gone. Her family was thousands of miles away. She slid down the door and wrapped her arms around her knees. This was supposed to be her dream. This was supposed to be where she finally belonged. Instead, she disappeared into exactly the kind of nightmare she'd never imagined could happen to someone like her. Smart, careful, American, but none of that mattered. Predators didn't discriminate. They just recognized hunger when they saw it. And Madison had been starving for validation her entire life. She'd flown to Seoul chasing proof that she was enough. Now she was locked in a cage built from her own ambition. And somewhere in this city of 10 million people, she was completely invisible. Madison didn't sleep that night. She sat on the floor with her back against the locked door and stared at the barred window until sunrise. When morning came, she heard voices in the hallway. Korean, low and urgent. She pressed her ear to the door but couldn't understand the words. Then, footsteps. Multiple sets. Moving past her door and stopping somewhere down the hall. She wasn't alone in this building. There were others. Mr. Choi came for her at noon. He unlocked the door and stood in the doorway holding a garment bag. "Get ready," he said. "Party tonight. Unison dress." He hung the bag on the back of the bathroom door and left. The lock clicked behind him. Madison unzipped the bag slowly. Inside was a tight black dress, expensive fabric, designer label. The kind of thing that cost more than her monthly rent back home. Underneath were heels and jewelry. Everything she needed to look like someone who belonged at an exclusive party. Everything except the freedom to say no. She thought about refusing, staying in her jeans and t-shirt, making them drag her out. But Yuna's words echoed in her head. $15,000, debt she'd supposedly agreed to. And what would happen if she didn't comply? She'd seen the storage room down the hall, windowless and small. She'd heard sounds coming from it 2 nights ago, crying. They had ways of making you cooperate that didn't involve outright violence. At 6 o'clock, Una arrived with a makeup artist. The woman worked in silence, transforming Madison's face into something polished and expensive. Una supervised, adjusting the dress, fixing Madison's hair. "You look beautiful," she said. "The client will be very pleased." "Who is he?" Madison asked. "A businessman. Very wealthy, very connected. Be charming. Smile. Drink, but don't get drunk. And listen, Madison." Una's voice dropped lower. "Don't try anything stupid. Don't make a scene. There will be security everywhere. If you embarrass us, if you embarrass him, the consequences will be severe. Do you understand?" Madison nodded because what else could she do? The party was at a luxury hotel in Gangnam, the neighborhood she'd dreamed of seeing. They entered through a private entrance and took an elevator to a penthouse suite. Inside, the space was filled with men in expensive suits and women who looked like Madison. Young, foreign, beautiful, all wearing the same forced smile. A server offered champagne. Madison took a glass with shaking hands. Una introduced her to the host, a man in his 50s with silver hair and cold eyes. "Mr. Park," she called him. He looked Madison up and down like she was a painting he was considering purchasing. "Beautiful," he said in English. "Korean?" "Korean-American," Una answered for her. "Even better." He touched Madison's arm, his fingers lingering. "You'll sit with me at dinner." The meal was elaborate, multiple courses, expensive wine, conversation in Korean that Madison couldn't follow. Mr. Park kept his hand on her leg under the table. Every time she tried to shift away, his grip tightened. He leaned close, his breath hot against her ear. "Una tells me you're new. I like new. Fresh." Madison excused herself to the bathroom. She locked the door and gripped the sink, staring at her reflection. This person looking back at her seemed like a stranger. Makeup perfect. Dress perfect. Everything on the outside designed to hide the terror underneath. She thought about her mother, about Claire, about everyone who thought she was living her dream in Seoul. When she came out, Yuna was waiting in the hallway. "Mr. Park wants to speak with you privately. He has a proposal." "No." The word came out before Madison could stop it. Yuna's face hardened. "Madison, he's willing to sponsor you. Pay off your debt entirely. All you have to do is have dinner with him. Just dinner, a few hours of conversation." "I know what that means." "You don't have a choice." Yuna grabbed her arm, fingers digging in. "You owe us. You signed a contract. This is how you pay it back. Or would you prefer we find other ways to make you cooperate?" Madison pulled away and ran. She didn't think, just moved. Through the party, past the surprised faces, toward the elevator. Yuna shouted behind her, but Madison didn't stop. She jabbed the button frantically. The doors opened. She got in and pressed the lobby button over and over. The doors closed. The elevator descended. Madison's heart slammed against her ribs. What had she just done? Where could she even go? She had no phone service without Wi-Fi, no money, no idea how to get back to the apartment. But staying meant something worse than being lost. The lobby was massive and crowded. Hotel guests, staff, tourists. Madison walked quickly toward the front entrance, trying to blend in. She made it outside into the Seoul night. The street was packed with people, cars, flashing signs. She'd never been more grateful for crowds in her life. She walked fast, no destination, just away. Every few seconds she glanced back, expecting to see Mr. Choi or Yuna. Her feet ached in the heels, but she didn't stop. After 3 blocks, she ducked into a convenience store. The clerk looked at her strangely. Foreign girl in an evening gown, breathing hard, clearly running from something. Madison found the store's Wi-Fi and connected. Her hands shook as she opened her messages. Claire had sent 15 texts. "Where are you? Your mom and I are so worried. Please call us. We filed a report. The embassy is involved. Madison, please." She typed back with trembling fingers. "I'm in trouble. They trafficked me. I don't know where I am. Locked in apartment. Escape tonight. Don't know how long I have." The message sent. 3 dots appeared immediately. Claire was typing. Then the door chimed. Mr. Choi walked in. Madison dropped her phone. She backed toward the rear of the store, but there was nowhere to go. Mr. Choi approached slowly, calmly. He said something in Korean to the clerk, probably explaining she was drunk or difficult. The clerk nodded sympathetically. Mr. Choi grabbed Madison's arm in a grip that looked gentle but hurt like hell. "You make very big mistake," he said quietly. "Now you learn." He dragged her to the car. Madison screamed, but people on the street just stared. A foreign girl being handled by a Korean man. They probably assumed she was drunk, causing problems, being dealt with appropriately. No one helped. No one intervened. Back at the apartment building, Mr. Choi took her to the storage room. Windowless, no bigger than a closet. He shoved her inside and locked the door. Total darkness. Madison pounded on the door until her fists were raw. No one came. She lost track of time. Hours or days, she couldn't tell. Someone slid food and water through a slot at the bottom of the door twice. She ate because her body demanded it, even as her mind screamed that she was giving up, accepting this. On what might have been the 3rd day, the door opened. Mr. Choi pulled her out, blinking in the harsh hallway light. He took her back to her apartment and left without a word. Madison collapsed on the bed, weak and disoriented. But something had crystallized in that darkness. She wouldn't become whatever they wanted her to become. She would find a way out, or die trying. Over the next days, she paid attention. She listened. She learned the patterns. Mr. Choi came every morning at 9. There was a 3-minute window when the building's front door was unlocked during the shift change between the night guard and day guard. She heard other girls being moved through the hallways, crying, speaking English and Korean. She wasn't the only one. One morning, she heard a voice through the wall, quiet, careful. "Can you hear me?" Madison pressed her ear to the wall. "Yes." "American." "Yes." "Texas." "New York." "I'm Ji-sun, Korean American. Been here 5 weeks." The boys paused. "They got you with the modeling thing too?" "Yeah. Seoul Models International. Mine was called Asia Star Agency. Different name, same people. There are 4 of us in this building, maybe more." They talked through the wall for hours that day. Ji-sun had been watching, learning. She'd figured out the building's security patterns, the timing of the guards, which doors stayed unlocked. "If we're going to run, it has to be during morning shift change, 9 a.m. But we need to be ready. No hesitation, no second chances." "My passport is gone," Madison said. "Mine too." We run first, figure out documents later. The embassy can help if we get to them. How do we know when? I'll tap on the wall. 3 times. That's the signal. Be ready. Madison had no idea if Ji-sun's plan would work, but it was hope, and hope was the only thing keeping her alive. Meanwhile, in Austin, Claire had become obsessed with finding Madison. The message Madison sent from the convenience store had given them something concrete. Claire contacted anti-trafficking organizations. She posted Madison's story everywhere online. To find Madison Park started trending. A Korean investigative journalist named Seo Yeon saw the posts and recognized the pattern. She'd been tracking similar cases for months. Young Korean-American women disappearing through fake modeling agencies. Seo Yeon contacted Claire. Together, they compiled evidence. The fake agency website before it disappeared. Screenshots of Yuna's Instagram. Other girls who'd gone missing the same way. Seo Yeon took the information to the Korean police. But bureaucracy was slow. Reports had to be filed. Investigations had to be opened. It would take weeks. Claire knew Madison didn't have weeks. The signal came on a Tuesday morning. 3 taps on the wall. Madison's heart jumped into her throat. She was already dressed, ready. She'd slept in her clothes for 3 days waiting for this. She heard Ji-sun's door open in the hallway. The sound of quick footsteps. Madison tried her own door. Unlocked. Mr. Choi was late today, distracted by something. This was it. She ran into the hallway. Ji-sun was there, thin and terrified but moving. They ran for the stairwell, not the elevator. Down 7 flights, their footsteps echoing off concrete. Madison's lungs burned. They burst through the ground floor door into the lobby. The security guard was talking on his phone, facing away. The front door was 10 feet away. Ji-sun grabbed Madison's hand, and they ran. Through the door. Into the street. Into the Seoul morning that felt like the first breath after drowning. They didn't stop running. 3 blocks, 4, until Madison's legs gave out and she collapsed against a building, gasping. Ji-sun pulled her up. We have to keep moving. They'll come looking. A taxi approached. Ji-sun stepped into the street, waving her arms. The driver almost didn't stop. 2 foreign girls, wild-eyed and desperate. But something in Ji-sun's face made him pull over. She spoke rapid Korean, begging. He nodded and opened the doors. Police station, Ji-sun said. Please, we've been held against our will. Please help us. The driver looked at them in the rearview mirror and seemed to understand. He drove faster. At the police station, everything became complicated. Language barriers. Skeptical officers. 2 foreign girls with no ID making wild accusations. But then Ji-sun said the name. Seo Yeon, the journalist who'd been filing reports. Suddenly, the officers listened. Within hours, Korean police raided the apartment building. They found Ashley from California still locked in her room and another girl from Vancouver. They found documents, ledgers, evidence of dozens of victims. Mr. Ivor Choi was arrested on site. Yuna tried to run but was caught at the airport. The story exploded across Korean media. International headlines. Me find Madison Park had worked. Madison's face was everywhere, not as a missing person anymore, but as a survivor. The U.S. Embassy arranged Madison's flight home within 48 hours. Claire and her mother were waiting at Austin Airport when she landed. Madison saw them through the crowd and her legs gave out. They caught her, held her. She sobbed into her mother's shoulder, great heaving cries that felt like they'd break her apart. I'm sorry, Madison kept saying. I'm so sorry. You have nothing to be sorry for, her mother whispered. Nothing. Madison moved back home. She couldn't face her dorm room, her old life. Everything felt tainted now. She started therapy twice a week. The nightmares were constant. She'd wake up thinking she was still in that apartment, still locked in that storage room. Her mother would come in and hold her until the panic subsided. The trial in Korea happened without her. She gave testimony via video, staring at a camera and describing everything that happened. Yuna received 8 years. Mr. Choi received 12. The trafficking network was dismantled, but everyone knew there were others. There would always be others. Madison deleted her Instagram. She cut her hair short. She stopped wearing makeup. She tried to disappear herself, to become invisible in the way she'd once desperately tried to be seen. Months passed. Seo Yeon, the journalist who'd helped save her, reached out. She was writing a feature on trafficking networks targeting Korean Americans. She wanted Madison's story, but only if Madison was ready. Madison thought about Ashley's empty eyes, about the girls who came before her, about the girls who would come after if no one spoke up. She agreed to the interview. The article published in Korean and English. Madison's name was everywhere again. this time on her terms. Messages flooded in from other survivors, girls who'd been through similar experiences, girls who thought they were alone. Madison realized her voice had power beyond vanity and likes. She started speaking at schools, at conferences, warning young women about the tactics traffickers use, explaining how easily it happens, how professional everything seems, how shame keeps victims silent. She and Claire created a website with resources for aspiring models, red flags to watch for, how to verify agencies, what to do if you feel unsafe abroad. A year after her escape, Madison went back to Korea, with her mother and Claire on her terms. They walked through Gangnam, past the modeling agencies and fashion boutiques. Madison felt nothing, no longing, no bitterness, just clarity. She understood now what she'd been chasing. Proof that she belonged somewhere, proof that she was enough. But belonging was never something Seoul or Instagram or strangers' validation could give her. It was something she had to give herself. One evening, sitting in her childhood bedroom, Madison wrote in her journal, not for anyone else, just for herself. I flew to Seoul thinking I needed to become someone different, someone more Korean, someone more beautiful, someone more worthy of being seen. But I was already whole. I just couldn't see it. She thought about the girl who'd opened that DM at 2 in the morning, so hungry for validation, so desperate to fit in somewhere. She wanted to go back and tell her that the hole she was trying to fill couldn't be filled from the outside, that the most dangerous prisons are built from our own insecurities. But she couldn't go back. She could only move forward. Madison enrolled in classes again, not communications anymore, social work. She wanted to help others who'd fallen through the cracks. She joined support groups for trafficking survivors. She found purpose in the collective refusal to stay silent. The dream didn't die in that apartment. It changed. Madison no longer wanted to be seen as beautiful. She wanted to be seen as human, real.flawed, surviving. Her mother asked her once if she regretted it all, if she wished she'd never gotten on that plane. Madison thought for a long time. No, she finally said, because it taught me something essential, that I was enough before, I'm enough now, and no one can take that from me ever again. Some cages are made of steel and locked doors, but the most dangerous ones are built from our own hunger to be anything other than what we already are. Madison flew to Seoul chasing a version of herself she thought she needed to become. She flew home understanding she was already whole. The girl in the mirror doesn't need validation anymore. She needs only to survive, to speak, to make sure no one else disappears chasing the same illusion. Because sometimes the most dangerous place in the world isn't a foreign city or a locked room. It's the space between who you are and who you're desperate to be. And the moment you close that gap, the moment you choose yourself, is the moment you're finally free.